tour to the facility last year, I think we dropped off 6 cases of potatoes. I think they're 40-pound boxes of potatoes. And we dropped them off there, and they gave us a tour of the facility, and it is a nice facility. Yeah, much better than the old facility was.
Yeah.
So, now if they can just get the Kennewick General Hospital set up for multi-purpose issues, from mental to rehab issues, and hopefully they get that. It sounds like it's moving forward based on the last commissioner hearing. I didn't get to today's. I didn't get to hear what took on today's. I missed it.
They didn't have one today.
Oh, they didn't? Okay. Oh, okay.
They went to the Benton County commissioners last week. What most people don't realize is that they're really not going to cover mental health.
Right.
But that's the unfortunate part. They're looking primarily at the money that they would receive from, they used Hanford's reimbursement rates to the health insurance plan. And so their health performance was just, I used to work in the healthcare industry, and their performance did not meet the requirements of a minimal performance.
I know my son is a detective with the Kennewick Police Department, and I guarantee you that the police for both counties and sheriff's departments for both counties will tell you they have to have some place to go with these people because they can't make the diagnosis out on the street. And sometimes taking some of these people with mental issues and then putting them into an orange jumpsuit and incarcerating them is the worst thing you can do.
Oh, yes.
So they need some professional diagnosis, to kind of make that decision of what their problem is and what their needs are. And I hope this facility can fill that.
Yeah, I hope they can get it going. I know Benton County has put aside $4 million from their 0.3% criminal sales tax. But it's a big, it's $20 million to fix up the existing facility.
Right.
And then startup costs are around, I think, $14 million.
Wow.
And as everybody knows now, we don't have sufficient resources in the Tri-Cities.
Oh, absolutely not.
To even meet the people that have insurance.
And I don't think the state will either, although I expect a new round of tax increases coming down the pike. We'll see.
That's another reason to hope Mr. Biden takes it for something else.
Yeah. I just heard a response. I was listening to a radio show on the way here, and it was talking about federal estate tax is somewhere around $11 million. I didn't realize it was that high. I didn't think it was that high, but maybe it is now.
They changed it with the last tax reduction.
Okay. And it sounds like Biden administration is talking about lowering it back down to $3.5 million.
Yeah.
So every small business that tries to pass it on to their kids, very likely the kids may have to sell the business in order to pay the inheritance tax.
Same with farms, yeah.
Yeah, and farms, yeah. Yeah, every small business. That's a sad deal.
Well, they did it in California. They effectively eliminated Proposition 13.
Right.
All the people that voted for it, they were about to lose their house or already had lost their house.
Right.
That's going to go away with kids that, we had planned to set up something where my mom moves up here, we can rent the house, create an income for her, because obviously the interest rate you get now, she's got very little income.
Right.
And that ain't going to work out. Because on top of that, you have to pay, whenever you sell a house, it's not capital gains, it's considered income tax.
Right. Yeah, that's some distribution of wealth that's going on.
Yeah.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah, is he familiar with?
Sorry. was set up.
Oh, you took back the host responsibilities. Okay, I feel quite relieved. Well, Rebecca, there's Mike Love of the Beach Boys behind you.
There you go, somewhere.
On mute, and then so that kind of helps with. Okay. Yeah. So that's it. Yeah, that's basically some of the basic stuff. Yeah, so. I've got my. Okay, great.
Yeah,
Thanks. Yeah, I just gotta figure out.
I think.
Yeah, you're sitting there like. I haven't done it before, but I'll figure it out. Okay, cool. Yeah. All right. Thanks.
the chairman's scripts and follow along.
Okay, great. Thank you. Hello, Mr. Chair.
Hello, Mike.
Hello.
How was your Thanksgiving?
It was great. How about you?
I can't complain. I always seem to find a way to get the fork to my mouth.
I hear you there. Good evening, all.
Good evening.
Welcome, Mike. Thank you. Good to be here.
All right. So, how'd it work?
What?
Did it work?
Yeah. Except, of course, when I went back to redo the live stream, I didn't accidentally forgot to click off the live chat part. So I'm like, nah, I'm not gonna worry about that.
So, yeah. So what I'm hoping, if we're really lucky, all of the people are going to be able to do it. And
Yeah.
You won't need to worry about calling.
Yeah.
Or it's going to be pretty minimal.
A what?
Minimal.
Yeah.
Amount of what you'll have to deal with will be pretty low.
Oh,
So, what's that?
wait. Looks like I got somebody's calling in. All right. Hello there. Who am I talking to?
I'm John Gruber from the Washington State Department of Transportation in the Yakima area.
Okay.
Hey, John. Thanks for attending.
Sure. Hey, yeah. So, I don't know. I don't really have a specific anything I need to say, but in case I do have a question, if you guys have questions of me, I'd be, willing to talk or whatever. So, or want to talk if I have a question. So,
Okay,
Okay.
I appreciate that. This is
Yeah.
Derek. You're talking to Aaron. Or Aaron's who you can probably
Yeah.
see. I don't know if you can see me.
Yeah. Here or.
I'll say, so Caleb's already signed up.
Station here to talk
Yeah.
on the UGA.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we're, interested in that part of the agenda is yes, the UGA. Because we've already commented on the rezone, and so you have our comments on that, unless there's some sort of question of us. But other than that, the rezone is what we're, we've certainly been working with the city of Pasco, but also interested in how the county views this and any sort of questions or concerns or whatever you may have. And so we'd be interested in, being there, hearing any comments, from the commissioners. And what was your name again? This is Commissioner Lane. John Gruber, Gruber.
Yeah,
Thank you, sir.
the workshop tonight is primarily kind of going to be a question and answer type of situation because of the way our system works. But then I'm going to try to set up one that's a little bit more interactive on the 15th for the UGA stuff. I just don't know how this is going to go right now tonight.
Okay. So, but you are having the UGA stuff on this one too, right?
Right. We're going to do the workshop will start. Then based on how that goes tonight, I mean, let's say everybody wants to talk on it, talks, then we may not have the workshop on the 15th. But right now I'm planning on that with a tentative hearing date on January 5th before the planning commission. But we've got to look at some stuff and make sure that timeline's going to work. We're not going to rush it.
Okay.
Let's put it that way. And then we're pretty sure that the board is going to want at least one workshop and one public hearing. So we're probably looking at sometime in February if we're lucky. That's what we're shooting for.
Are you doing a public hearing on the 15th, you said?
No. I said January 5th
Oh, I'm
is the
sorry.
tentative date, but it's very tentative.
Okay.
Basically, I've got it, I won't set the date until the commission is satisfied, or at least the majority of them is, that they've done their due diligence with the public with regard to this action. If it requires that we have 57 workshops before you guys are satisfied, unfortunately, that's what it's going to take. This is not something that we're going to rush. We're not, as much as we want to get this done, we have to get it done right. So it'll be slow and proper as opposed to rushed and oops later on. So, we did get some comments that showed up today late. We'll get those out to the board or the commission here probably tomorrow. Mostly, well, actually, it's the same comment, or it's the same commenter who has provided comment regarding the EIS. It's more a matter of, that's going to be something more the city's going to respond to. Mostly, I believe tonight's going to be, between the city, the county. We're looking at everything. We're not seeing anything that's readily apparent that's an issue, but there may be, we also have concerns regarding traffic and things like that. But when you're trying to shove 50,000 people into an area, we're going to have those issues. So trying to figure out how to adjust that and accommodate it, it's going to be a trick. So,
This is Derek and Aaron. This is Jacob at the City of Pasco. I haven't actually used WebEx yet for all this pandemic, so I just want to make sure I'm good.
Yeah, you're good.
That's right. I can see you. I can hear you. That's about all we ask for right now.
Just want to check.
Get the right filter on so we don't send any pathogens over, right?
well, I have my mask on. Well, I ain't at my desk.
Yeah.
Aaron, I have just a quick question on the Pasco presentation. Will you be navigating or will I be doing that?
So what I'll do is I'll make you the presenter, and you should be able to basically load up the PowerPoint and
Okay,
do a screen share kind of setup. So
sounds good.
yeah, I'll have to. Hopefully, I'll just send that over.
Where's your mask? Thank you.
How do you want to read this? Want me to start the meeting and then you count in? And read
Yeah, we'll
this?
do it that way. You go ahead and do the call to order,
Right.
and then we'll read that in.
What?
But yeah, so I got a comment. Jacob, yeah, you're still there. I got a comment that I'm gonna probably ask you about, but you guys have heard the comment before. I just want, because we just got it tonight, so I want to make sure it's on the record.
Oh, okay.
From a Mr. Caruso or something like that, Caruso. Mostly about traffic, the fact, questioning regarding the DEIS and a request that it be redone.
Could it be a Robert Carosino?
That would be it.
Yes.
So I will be asking you about that just so that we get your response.
Yeah.
But, oh, it's that time. I better go sit down.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
That's Caleb. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Just working out the kinks. Thanks.
Now 6:30, isn't it?
All right. Let me get the. Doo-doo-doo.
Close enough. Whenever you guys are ready.
Yep, we're ready.
It's 6:30 p.m. and I call the December 1 meeting of the Franklin County Planning Commission meeting to order. Will the planning staff please call the roll, announce whether or not we have a quorum?
Nick Vincent.
Here.
Roger Link.
Present.
Leighton Lowe. Claude Parrott.
Here.
Kent McMullen.
Present.
Mike Corrales.
Present.
Melinda Didier. Here. Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Okay. Will the staff in attendance please
introduce yourselves and also read into the record the start of each virtual PC meeting. I'm Derek Brodden. I'm the Director of Planning and Building for Franklin County.
I'm Aaron Gunderson. I'm the Planner 1 for Franklin County.
I'm Rebecca Gilly. I'm the Planning and Building Services Administrator.
I'm Matt Mahoney. I'm the Public Works Director.
And then I'm going to read this into the record. As every meeting. Tonight's meeting will be conducted through an online virtual meeting platform. Planning commissioners and staff are joining us remotely in order to comply with Governor Inslee's proclamation 20.28.13 as it relates to the Open Public Meeting Act during the COVID-19 state of emergency. Should an individual planning commissioner become unexpectedly disconnected, please rejoin the meeting at your first opportunity. The record will reflect your attendance. The meeting will be paused for up to 10 minutes to address technical difficulties. If they cannot be resolved within 10 minutes, then the meeting will proceed so long as a quorum of planning commissioners are present. Please activate your mute button at the bottom of your computer screen or on your telephone when not speaking. One final note. For those parties wishing to provide comment on any of tonight's agenda items, please make sure to call in using the number provided in tonight's agenda before the start of the hearing or workshop you wish to participate in. Due to system limitations, we can only accept comments from parties that are in queue at the start of the public hearing. Before the start of each hearing workshop, the meeting will be paused for a few minutes so staff can establish comment callers' needs and position on the matter. And that's that. Any questions?
None here.
Okay, I will lead us all in pledge allegiance. Okay. Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting. We have two items. We got CUP 2020-03, Big Bend Electric Cooperative Power Station, and ZC 2020-02, Big Sky Cooler rezone from AP 20 to RC1. Would someone entertain a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll move that the agenda be as approved as presented.
Second?
Second.
And it has been moved by Commissioner Link and seconded by Commissioner Melinda Didier. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, it passed. So it is now time for the public hearing portion of our meeting. And I'll say good evening and welcome. I will turn briefly over to our staff host who will go over the ground rules for tonight's hearing.
Yeah, so here are the ground rules for tonight's virtual WebEx hearing. One, all speakers will be called upon individually during the public testimony portion of the hearing, giving their name for the audio record as well as they are in favor, neutral, or against the proposal. Please mute your audio when you're not speaking. Two, all comments and questions shall be addressed to the Planning Commission and should be relevant to the application and not be of a personal nature. Third, each speaker shall have 5 minutes to provide testimony. 4, please avoid repetitive comments. 5, if there are a large number of speakers who are part of a group or organization, please select a representative to speak on behalf of the group. And 6, behavior such as clapping, booing, hissing, or remarks is prohibited. Every citizen here tonight should have the opportunity to testify without such distractions.
Are there any questions regarding public hearing ground rules? Hearing none, I'll turn over to our commission members. Let us keep in mind that we are prohibited by law from communicating with members of the public on the subject matter of these hearings, except in these hearings. We also may not participate in a decision in which there is an appearance of conflict of interest to the average person. So let us take a minute to consider as to the matters which are before us for hearing today. Whether we had any extra ex parte communications, whether we have any ownership interest in properties, whether we have business dealings with proponents or opponents of the matters, or whether we have business associates or immediate family who may be either benefited or harmed by decision to these matters. Are there any commission members who have a declaration at this time regarding any of the items on the agenda?
This is Commissioner McMullen. I don't know whether this is of concern or not, but having farmed north of Pasco for a long time, I still receive annual dividends from Big Bend Electric Cooperative. Having been a member of the cooperative for many years, I don't think it will impact my decision one way or another.
And I'm part of Big Bend as well, and I've received dividends as well. Because it's a co-op and I'm a member as well. So, but it won't impact my decisions either. But is there any complaint from the members for that? Okay, let the record show that there were no there was 2 declarations. I'm a member of Big Bend.
You just went mute, Mike.
Is that better?
Now it is. So we heard you two are a member of the big, and then you went on mute. So
Okay, so you can hear me now, right?
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you, Mike.
I'm a member of the co-op, and I don't feel that it will affect my decision one way or the other.
Okay, if there are no objections,
Are there any members of the public that are in attendance that would object to these members participating?
I see Melinda's hand in the air. Are you also Melinda?
Yes, board members as well.
Okay, well, this definitely would move into the inability to form a quorum situation. So, but still, is there anybody in the audience this evening who would object to any commission member hearing any of the items on the agenda? None.
No.
You just said,
No, I basically was just saying there's no call-ins besides the person from West Dot. That's, yeah.
okay.
Well, then we'll say that we'll let the record show that there were no objections.
All right, yep. Thank you.
The order of the hearing shall be as follows. Planning staff shall provide a staff report. The commission may ask questions of staff. The applicant or applicant's representative presentation. Other testimony in favor of the request. Testimony either neutral or against the request. Final staff comment. Clarification of public statement that occurred during the testimony portion of the public hearing, and close the public hearing and planning commission discussion of the proposed action. Are there any procedural questions before we begin the public hearing? Okay. Item 1 is a public hearing for file CUP 2020-03, an application to allow for the development of a new electrical substation. Are there any parties on the phone seeking to comment on this matter?
No, like I was saying earlier.
Still nobody?
Yeah, still nobody.
Okay. Then may we have a staff, present, the staff report, please?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is a request by Big Bend Electrical Cooperative. They're seeking to develop a new electrical substation on parcel number 124300083, an approximately 11.06 acre property. And an electrical substation is a listed conditional use in the AP 20 zone, but it is only allowed with a conditional use permit. The area to be developed will cover approximately 43,200 square feet of said property. Portions of the property to the northwest and southwest are parts of active, there's been small little slivers of an active crop circle that come onto the property, but otherwise the rest of the property is vacant. Effectively, it's where two crop circles join.
Derek, real quick. So I made you the presenter. I don't know if you have a PowerPoint.
I don't.
Oh, you don't? Okay. Sorry.
So again, we follow. All right, I'll be discombobulated there. Sorry about that. Portions of the property to be all right. Those otherwise vacant. The property is zoned agricultural production 20, AP 20, and carries an agricultural comprehensive plan land use designation. As mentioned, approximately 43,200 square feet of the property is proposed to be used for the substation and ancillary structures. The area covering where the substation is to be built will be fenced and gravelled. The substation will reduce voltage from 115 kV to 12.47 kV. It will serve existing load in and around the area. An approximate 200 square foot control building will also be built. And as mentioned, the site will be covered in gravel with minimal pavement. When I say the site will be covered, I mean the section of the property that is developed, not the entire property. The applicant provided a site plan, which basically shows the location of the facility in the north portion of the property. It shows the proposed fenced area and proposed substation layout. Under state law, had this property been 30 acres or less, it would have been exempt under what's known as it's exempt from these types of reviews, but this triggered a CUP because of the utilization of more than 3 acres of the site. Or, I mean, the fact that the property is more than 3 acres. Staff built technical review requests to technical agencies on July 23rd, 2020. We mailed notices to property owners within 1 mile on July 23rd, 2020. On October 5th, 2020, a second notice was sent to all landowners within 1 mile of the site, informing them that this item would have its public hearing on November 17th, 2020. At that meeting, this item was postponed to December 1st, which is tonight. The same comments and notices, the same notice was provided and posted in the Tri-City Herald and Franklin County Graphic on July 23rd, 2020. And again, on October 5th, notifying the public this was to be heard on November 17th. And again, it was pushed back to tonight's meeting. Sign was posted on the property on or about July 23rd, 2020. Secret checklist was included in the application. Planning staff, the lead agency responsible, reviewed the checklist and issued a determination of non-significance, DNS, on July 23rd, 2020 under WAC 197114402, which was published also on July 23rd, 2020. It was filed as CEPA number 202003825 in the statewide secret register, and comments would, on the threshold, the DNS were due by August 6, 2020. No comments or appeals have been received. Applicable standards and code is Trenton County Zoning Code, AP 20, Chapter 17.10. Special permits, Chapter 17.82. And our FUCO guidelines, which is Chapter 18.04. Trenton County Comprehensive Plan, and Benton Trenton District Board of Health Rules and Regulations number 2. We received no public comments regarding this action. The other comments received were pretty. Actually, we really received no comments except for from Public Works, which were pretty standard. That they would be needed for an approach permit, and then any utility extensions crossing Franklin County roads will have to be addressed at the time that such a request is made. But we received no other comments from any other agencies. Planning and building has determined the following suggested findings and provided comments for this application. Our substation is specifically listed as conditional use in the AP 20 zone. That's found in FCC 17.10.040E. The proposed substation is being built to support existing load on the system. Property is located in the AP 20 Agricultural Protection Zone. A conditional use permit is required for a power substation in this zone, and one has been applied for. Comp plan designation for this property is agricultural. Comprehensive plan contains the following goal regarding the infrastructure development in Franklin County. Goal 1, to ensure that the energy, communication, solid waste disposal facilities and services needed to support current and future development are available when they are needed. We believe that this falls under that category. There are no mapped critical areas on or near the project site, except there isn't an irrigation canal right of way along the east boundary of the property. And according to the approved site plan, the fencing for the substation is 40 feet from the edge of the canal right of way's boundary. So not from the edge of the right of way, but actually from the actual boundary of the right of way, which is usually 30 foot off the edge of the canal. Any exterior lighting shall be directed on site so as not to interfere with the comfort and repose of adjoining property owners. Fenced area and access shall, at a minimum, be gravelled, and a new access permit for the property is required. Separate building permits are required for any proposed or future structures or buildings, including storage buildings exceeding 200 square feet. It is likely that though the operations building is less than 200 square feet due to the nature of the use, it may, so I shouldn't say likely, but it may require a building permit. That will have to be a discussion that we have with staff once we know a little bit more regarding the specifics of the building. According to the Franklin County Code, Chapter 17.82, special permits, the Planning Commission shall make and enter findings of fact in the record and conclusions thereof, shall render a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners as to whether the proposal be denied, approved, or approved with modifications and or conditions. Finding the fact criteria to be used by the Planning Commission is to determine whether or not the proposal is in accordance with the goals, policies, objectives, maps, and or narrative text of the comprehensive plan. The proposal will adversely affect public infrastructure. The proposal will be constructed, maintained, and operated to be in harmony with the existing or intended character of the general vicinity. The location and height of proposed structures in the site design will discourage the development of permitted uses on the property in the general vicinity or impair the value thereof. The operation in connection with the proposal will be more objectionable to nearby properties by reason of noise, fumes, vibration, dust, traffic, or flashing lights than would be the operation of any permitted uses within the district. The proposal, whether or not the proposal will endanger the public health or safety of located and developed where proposed, or in any way will become a nuisance to uses permitted in the district. So, council's review of the proposal. Franklin County Planning Department recommends that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the Franklin County Board of Commissioners for application CUP 2020-03 with the following 6 suggested findings of fact and 16 suggested conditions of approval. So as mentioned, okay, the proposed use is in the AP 20 zoning district, and it is in accordance with the goals and policies of the county development regulations and applicable comprehensive plan. The comp plan classifies the land as agricultural. The comp plan encourages development of public infrastructure, facilities, and services. There are no critical areas present on the project site. The land is zoned as AP 20. Such a use is allowed with a conditional use. The applicant has applied for a conditional use. We do not believe it will adversely affect public infrastructure in that access to the parcel is from the Port Road. The use will not have a significant impact on the county road system, as indicated by Public Works. We believe the proposal will be constructed, maintained, and operated to be in harmony with existing or intended character. The immediate area consists of farms and single-family homes. The proposed use will generally be unoccupied, with BBEC staff visiting the site on an intermittent basis for maintenance and repair of the facility. It will not impair the ability for residential, rural, and in fact may improve the likelihood of these occurring, and agricultural activities to continue, nor will it have an impact on the intended character. I mean, these always look a little weird, but when you get out there and you start comparing that to, say, maybe drawing the blank, but the crop circle irrigation systems, the big machinery that may be out on fields, I don't believe it's outside of the, wouldn't stand out as being too odd. So that goes into 4, which again, site design will not discourage the development of permitted uses on property. Having a substation shouldn't affect the ability of people to have farming operations or anything like that. And then any lighting, if there is a house in proximity, would be directed on site, so that again there shouldn't be any issues there. Operation and condition will not be more objectionable. There's not a lot of flashing lights. It's pretty much a static environment. Traffic employees will be intermittent. And the project is subject to the county's right to farm ordinance. Not that I would think farming activities would impact it any. The project is required to comply with Health Department Public Works standards regarding health and access safety standards for the proposed use. And the public was notified, and we received no comments in favor and no comments in objection. So, suggested conditions of approval is the project shall comply with the requirements and recommendations of Benton Franklin Health District. Shall comply with with the Franklin County Planning and Building Department. So, and the site plan submitted meets all those standards already, but they are conditions. No building or structure shall exceed 4 foot in height. That exceeds 4 foot in height shall be closer than 25 feet from a road right of way. Side setback requirements are 20 feet, and the rear yard setback, and this would include the fencing because it's over 4 foot, is a minimum of 25 feet. So, and again, the proposed setback or site plan shows this is more than adequately met. All storm drainage will be retained on site and controlled by way of drainage swells, dry swells, French drains, or other means as approved by the county engineer. Lighting shall be direct down. The current parcel is approximately 11.06 net acres. If the property is later adjusted through a boundary line adjustment or short plat, a new conditional use permit may be required. That may be the case, but we would address that at the time. Basically, they would have to start messing around in that seeking to expand more would be more of a concern than reduce the property size. As mentioned before, you need to get an approach permit, and then any utilities crossing the road, these are from Public Works, will be addressed at the time of the application. Parking on gravel, as proposed, is allowed as long as activity at the site is infrequent and any fire risk, especially during drought or near drought conditions, is mitigated through appropriate means. Gravel should be adequate to mitigate that. Parking along the Port Road is not permitted. Any new approaches on the county roads will require an approach permit. Any signage used to locate the facility must meet the provisions of Franklin County Side Code. I don't think they usually put signage, but maybe, some places do. No sign shall obstruct any roadways, and all signs shall be removed. Well, I don't believe they have events out there, so that's a typo. I apologize. Pros of the area. So they have to comply with the following conditions regarding occupancy and use. The area to be used for the development of substation ancillary structures is 43,200 square feet. Proposed expansion of the facility beyond that area may require a new CUP. Occupancies or uses not permitted under this CUP, including the building of additional office and storage space structures, is not allowed. If the applicant desires to expand the uses allowed on the site at a future date, a new CUP shall be applied for. The applicant shall commence. Okay, the rest of this is our form stuff. They've got to get this stuff going within 1 year. Make sure that they're following all the stuff. If there's valid complaints, it can be removed. But yeah, the rest is just our standard form conditions. I can read them if y'all want me to, but
I don't think we need to.
okay. So that is my report. Mark Hay with BBEC is here to answer any specific questions, so I may defer to him based on the questions if there are any that you have.
This is Commissioner McMullen. I'm just curious, are they planning an expansion because of the acreage and of the acreage being used for this project? There's considerable amount of acreage left over, and I found that the parcel size was very unique in shape. And I was wondering if they were using the extra area for storage of telephone poles or other infrastructure that may be needed to service the area. And so that was my first question.
Not under this CUP as proposed. That was not provided as, that they were going to be using that other area. But Mark may be able to speak to that better than I.
Well, first of all, good evening, and thank you for having me here. Initially, no, we don't plan to do anything on the site besides the substation itself. We do have an option, I guess, down the road as Pasco grows north. It does give us options for a service center, but we don't plan to use that property for anything at this time. Initially, we purchased that property from Randy Mullen. He plans to farm the remainder of that area until and if we need it, and use that for storage and so forth. So no, it'll be continuing to be used, but we'll only use approximately the 3 acres at this time.
Thank you.
My question was kind of along, this is Melinda Didier, and my question was sort of along those same lines. Derek, I wonder if you could just go in and share your PDF of the vicinity map and the site plan. It's really hard to see where that area is going to be situated on our hard copy documents. Is that on the vicinity map where you show the yellow boundary lines? Is that a separate parcel?
That's the entire property. The yellow kidney shape?
Yes, that's a separate parcel then from the parcels that those two circles.
Correct, it was subdivided last year.
Okay. So are they leasing that then? They didn't sell that parcel separately for the substation?
No, as Mark just said, they bought it from Randy.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
No, you wanted to see the vicinity map, not the.
Both, actually, if you don't mind sharing both the vicinity map and the site plan. Site plan. It's just kind of hard to tell, where it's.
Yeah, now I'm trying to remember how to share. Hold on. Let's see. Okay. So there's the site plan. So what you can't see here is that it drops down pretty significantly. This property does. This is the canal. Can you guys see my mouse moving around?
Yes.
Okay, so LaPorte Road, we got a dedicated road right of way, then we got a canal right of way going down through here. You can see these are 40 feet off the edge of the canal right of way. Vicinity map. Okay, so are you seeing a vicinity map now or a site plan map?
The vicinity map.
So you're seeing a color map? Okay.
Yes.
So the yellow, I guess it's not really kidney shape. Whatever that shape you would call that, that's the property, this yellow. And when I mentioned that there were some portions of crop circles coming into the property, that's what I'm talking about there, where Randy is continuing to farm that portion of the property. I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, but he won't be doing it in the north, or you dropping that? I guess actually you're putting it down closer to where it actually says LaPorte.
Yeah, he's got end guns on each of those circles, and so he's going to pull those end guns off, or at least one of them on the north end, to allow us to use that property.
Oh, okay, so it is in the north, like on the.
Yeah, you can kind of see on the eastern edge, right up against the Port Road. There's a little notch in the property. We're basically north of that notch.
Maybe get the site plan popped back up again.
And there is no corner system on that swing span on that pivot circle to the north?
I don't know the answer to that one. Not being a farmer, so I'm not sure. But Randy just mentioned he would accommodate us and make sure that we'd be good on that substation property and be able to use it.
Okay. As best as I can tell from the map, the end tower apparently just runs inside the property boundary that was determined. So I'm sure he wouldn't have purposely sold something that negated the use of his pivot system.
Yeah, I can see where he's got a kink on it that lines up with the property line.
Yes, there is a kink on the end, and that's why I'm thinking that the swing span will have to be reprogrammed so that it doesn't swing out and take out your fence. And
he's actually that's what he's planning to pull off. He doesn't like those swing systems like that, so he's planning on pulling that off.
Oh, very good. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I mixed up. I don't know your terminology, so I'm trying to catch up with you. Sorry.
I still don't know it all.
Swing span or corner system is usually what most people will refer to them as.
Oh, wow. Sorry. Any other questions?
I have a couple questions for Derek.
Yeah.
On number 10, comply with fire code requirements. Which fire code?
I mean, which fire code?
That's what I'm asking.
The International Fire Code, that's what everybody has to comply with.
Oh, okay, so there's, ICBO or
I'm sorry?
ICBO?
ICF, or IFC, International Fire Code, that's what's gonna stop, adopted by the state of Washington.
Okay. I don't believe the county has fire code requirements, is that correct? Does the county adopt, international fire code requirements?
Yes,
Okay,
yes, we're in fact, we're gonna be doing that here shortly, for the 2018 cycle. They're gonna have that adopted by, what's that, February? It's been being delayed because of COVID and other things. And as part of that, we adopt both the IDC, the International Building Code, with Washington amendments, and then we adopt the IFC, the International Fire Code, again with Washington State amendments. So most of it's by reference. There's very little local specific code requirements, but one thing that we're, for example, one thing that we'll be looking to add is the requirement that if there's a fire hydrant within 500 feet, then you need to do farther setbacks, as you saw applied here. The side setbacks are 20 feet, not 10 foot. That's a local thing, but it's an option that's available to us through the IFC. So.
okay. We may want to be just a little more specific in the future, just that's just my comment. Second question would be, I know in the past, we've had conditional use permits assigned to individuals for things such as a meeting or event center or something along that lines. Here we have a substation, which is pretty expensive and pretty specific for use. I'm wondering why we don't assign that to the property as opposed to the named individual.
Actually, we usually don't assign it to an individual. Usually that's a rarity with our CUPs. Event centers are different because of the nature of what they are. This would be, did I suggest otherwise?
It says this permit applies to described lands and shall be for the above named individual. And it may not be transferred to another individual or entity. So Franklin PD or BPA comes in and wants to, unlike the event that they want to purchase it, it hangs with the individual. That's under condition 15.
No, I agree with you. That was not the intent. The intent was not to have that go because there's not an assigned individual. So thank you for bringing that up. We will make that change then as we go. And for whatever reason, I can't seem to find the next. Yep, nope, that's wrong. I apologize for that. 15 needs to be, our recommendation is that it goes to the land. It shall be for the above named individual and assigns transfer that language. And I apologize, I just don't have it off the top of my head. But that, we would just assign to the land, not to the individual. That's a oops on my part. I apologize for that.
Okay.
Thank you for calling that out. Because, yeah, it would be an individual. Didn't we just hear it's a cooperative?
Commissioner Lake, this is Matt. What I would suggest is when we get to the point of a motion, I think it would be good to clarify that in the motion.
Yes, I agree.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. And then again, on condition 16, that's just language that we have been provided by the civil attorney.
Correct.
Okay.
No, this language the board has requested that we include on conditional use permits and other potential things. Basically stating that just because we issued the permit doesn't mean that we're responsible for how you operate. If you violate it, it's on you.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you, sir.
Huh? Any other questions? Okay, we'll stop sharing now.
I have to unmute myself. Okay, so we have no more questions, right? Okay. We've all the statements or the testimony or the questions that we had have been in favor of it. So is there anything that's neutral or against the substation?
There doesn't seem to be any comments still or anything. So
There's nobody on the phone.
yeah.
Does the staff have any further comments?
Not on this subject, no.
Okay. Is there any clarification of public statement needed by anyone? Okay, then the public testimony portion of the public hearing for CUP 2020-03 is closed. Is there any more discussion amongst the planning commission prior to entertaining a motion?
No.
Okay,
No.
No.
then I would entertain a motion that this would be for approval.
Mr. Chair, I'll go ahead and move approval of CUP 20-03 with the recommended findings and conditions of approval with an amendment to condition of approval 15 to reflect that the CUP is valid for the property as opposed to the individual.
Okay, is there a second?
I will second it.
Okay. Okay, then we've had Commissioner Link moved and has been seconded by Commissioner McCollum that we forward to the board the Commissioner's recommendation of approval for CUP 2020-03 with the adopted findings of fact and what we call one adopted finding.
It's with 6 adopted findings of fact and 16 conditions of approval.
16, okay. Any more discussion? Okay, may we have the roll call vote, please?
Melinda Didier,
Yes.
Claude Parrott,
Yes.
Mike Vincent,
Yes.
Mike Corrales,
Yes.
Roger Link,
Yay.
Kent McMullen.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the motion has passed.
Okay, the motion is approved. Then we'll move on to item 2, which is ZC 2020-02. That's Big Sky corner rezone from 8 AP 20 to RC1. And I'll declare that open. And may we have a staff report, please?
Yes, this time I'm going to start with a map. So that we have the reference. Okay, so you should see before you an aerial map with a roughly rectangular property outlined in yellow with some strange jags to the east. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So this is the vicinity map. As you can see, it's north of what is the name of that subdivision? Pelican Road, and then Hillcrest Drive, and then it bounds by. If you've ever been to Terrace Drive or McDonald Drive, they're both kind of end, but there is technically a connection between the two. That is often shown as an extension of Terrace Drive. The river is here. This is the Columbia River, and then we have crop circles and various other farming activities. Currently, at least the last time I was out there, it was this area here is vineyards. It's vineyard. The single family residence here and here. Then these two properties will most likely also be developed into single family residence as well. I believe an application's already in on this one. So this is zoning code or zone change request 2020-02, seeking a change from AP 20 to rural community RC1 or rural community 1. The applicant is Big Sky Development. The owner of the property is Deborah Kohler, and they're generally located east of the Columbia River, south of the south terminus of Terrace Drive and McDonald Drive, north of the Pelican Point subdivision, and northwest of Dent Road. And it's located in a portion of Farm Unit 1-67 and it's listed as parcel number 126230. Let's see something real quick. Yeah, now I pop this one. This is the zoning for this property right here is AB 20. This is AB 20, and all of this is AB 20. However, all of this is RC1, and this is RS 40, which is a few thousand square feet shy of. So this allows for 40,000 square foot lot properties. These are a minimum 43,560. The reason I bring this one up though is there are some oddities with this property in that it's got multiple, as you can see it in the zigzag area, it's already zoned RC1. And then this little portion right here is part of the farm unit, but it's not part of the property. So that little sliver will likely actually remain AP 20. Just because it's actually, I don't know if that's a right of way or why that sliver's there. But the rezone is only for this area and this jagged area. Obviously not this portion, which is why the acreage under rezone is different than the actual lot acreage. So that's why I wanted to point that out. So parcel's 33.92 acres net, and primarily agriculture and residential uses in the area. RS40 zone allowing for minimum lot size 40,000, located to the south. A mix of half-acre and 1 acre single-family residential and active agricultural is located to the north. Surrounding uses to the east and west are probably 10 acres or larger. Properties under agricultural production or single-family residential uses that are zoned R31. east 2/3 of the north boundary of the property borders an 1820 zone property. Comp plan designation is rural shoreline development. It's located in the Columbia River West area. Total of 33.92 acres will be changed from AP20 to RC1 under the rezone proposal. And there's a staff is recommending positive recommendation with 5 findings of fact and 3 conditions of approval. Public notice was initially published in the Herald and Graphic on March 12, 2020. Due to the COVID-19 emergency, the public hearing regarding the inspection was postponed until November 17, 2020. Second notice was sent to surrounding landowners and was posted in the Franklin County Graphic and Tri-City Herald on October 5th, 2020. Just as the last item, this was postponed at the November 17th meeting to December 1st. Property owners within 1 mile were mailed notice on March 12th, 2020, as well as they were also provided, they were sent notice on October 5th as well. The property was posted on March 12th, 2020. So, Plan staff mailed out review packets to technical agencies on March 12th, 2020 and November 17th, 2020. Due to the timing of the initial request coinciding with the initiation of COVID-19 emergency protocols established during the initial comment period, the second notice was sent on November 17th in order to ensure agencies did not miss the notice. This was also repeated with the SEPA, and it was reset for agency comment out to November 17th. The other comment we got that was new was actually from DOT telling us, hey, thanks for the opportunity, but our comments are the same. And, so we just took all those comments that we received, compiled those, and those were presented to you. So, as mentioned, this area is rural shoreline development of the comp plan designation. And the property surrounding it are also in the rural shoreline, so this would not be an expansion of RC1 into new ag land, I guess you could say. It's land that's all designated as shoreline residential. Rural shoreline development. I already kind of went over this map. Like I said, RC1, RS40, AB20. Minimum lot size for county zoning district is AP20 is 20 acres. Minimum lot size for proposed zoning district is RC1 is 1 acre. It's consistent with the comp plan designation of rural shoreline development. It will allow for a more intensive use of the land upon any future subdivision or short platting. Primary permitted uses in the RC1 zone include one single-family dwelling. Allows for the property to be used for gardening and fruit raising, agricultural produce stands for products grown on the premises, which is less permissive than the list of primary permitted uses in the AP20. That includes one single-family dwelling, agriculture, horticulture, general farming, rural retail businesses, veterinary clinic, retail business associated with ag products grown or produced on site, vet clinics, nurseries and greenhouses, and winery distillery breweries. Likewise, the list of permitted accessory uses, ability to raise animals subject to certain restrictions, family daycare homes, home occupations, accessory dwellings, and accessory buildings is more restricted, with only 10 conditional uses listed as potentially allowed in the RC1 district and 25 conditional uses listed as potentially allowed in the AP20. That's a long way of saying this rezone, though increases the intensity of potential residential use, is less permissive than the current uses that could be developed on the property. property as it currently is. The rezone request is consistent with surrounding area. Single-family residential uses exist or are planned for the general area. According to the FC 17.18.010 states the purpose of the RC1 zone is to provide a rural residential environment permitting one dwelling unit per acre. Lands within this district are normally located in rural areas that are outside designated urban growth area boundaries and contain residential development with large lots and expansive yards. Structures in this district are limited to single-family dwellings and customary accessory structures. Certain public facilities and institutions may also be permitted, provided their nature and location are not detrimental to the intended rural residential environment. Rural shoreline development is characterized by a mixture of half-acre to 5-acre residential developments, scattered single-family residences, small farms, and places where residential developments are expected to continue to occur. The existing developments are created through traditional county subdivision short plat guidelines, and the maximum residential density for this area ranges from 1 dwelling unit per acre to 1 dwelling unit per 5 acres. This designation provides for the infill development and redevelopment of lands with the intention that this area be exclusively residential in nature. So that's the comp plan rural shoreline development. And the Columbia River West area, prior to growth management, numerous shoreline lots and adjacent tract developments were built along Franklin County shoreline. These lots range in size from 1/2 acres to 5 acres. In 1995, this area was designated to include in the Pasco urban growth area. Consistent with the existing land use patterns in the area, development has continued within this area since the adoption of the 1995 comprehensive plan. At Pasco's request, this area was removed from its urban growth boundary as part of the 2008 plan update. This area is a type 1 LAMERT, limited area of more intense rural development. An LOB, logical outer boundary, utilizing the Pasco UGA to the south, Richland and Columbia border to the west, Dent Road to Fraser Road to the south, Columbia Irrigation Canal right-of-way along the east, and Sagemore Road to the north has been established. This boundary encompasses the existing pre-growth management developments and tracts in the area. We received no comments, and this is not unusual in a rezone. A lot of these entities are a bit more interested should the property subdivide. No comments from the assessor or public works. Any new lots may be created as a result of this zone change that will require access to a county road shall be subject to county road approach policy requirements. Any mitigation fees required will be determined upon development of the property and will go towards future road upgrades as development continues to grow here. The reason why at this stage you're going to find that some of the comments are not real specific is because though, assuming if this were to be approved to be rezoned to RC1, there's no guarantee as to what will actually develop. And to preload the situation, shall we say, on a max build-out potentiality is not cost-effective and it's not justifiable. You can't defend a requirement, for example, under this current status of the process to say RC1 designated it's a 40 acres. Reality, 35 lots could potentially be created in that spot. Now you're going to have to build a new road, but they may not do 35. They may do 5-acre lots. All of these types of things. So that's why it's not unusual for a rezone request to have limited comments. It's when it goes to the time of actual development that the specifics come out such that we can actually really nail down specific requirements or mitigations. Any subdivision will generally go through a seeking process. So. Franklin PUD has facilities in this section. There's a map included. So both BBEC and Franklin PUD will be agencies potentially impacted by this location, their services. Then Department of Archaeology and Historic Preservation, DHP, has no concerns at this time, but we'll want to review any proposed subdivisions or site-specific developments. DAHP is basically the folks that track things that are on the National Register, also coordination with the tribes in case there's native, at the time of development, they come across any indigenous relics or things like that, because this area was actively used by various tribes. Those types of things, again, that would most likely come out in the subdivision specifics as far as requirements. Now, DOT did express concerns with the cumulative impact from development to the Broadmoor Road 100 interchange. Broadmoor and Road 100 interchange. Development will be subjected to WASDOT review for impacts to the state transportation system, and where necessary, mitigations may be required. Again, the standard saying, hey, we have some concerns, but we won't be able to provide really specific comments until we see the specific development proposal for the property. Applicable standards and ordinances, Franklin County Comp Plan, Franklin County Code 17.8 RC1 Rural Community Zone, Title 17 Zoning, Chapter 17.8 for amendments and rezoning. So, based on 17.84, Franklin County Planning Commission shall render a recommendation to approve with modifications and/or conditions or reject the petition based on its findings and conclusions. The Planning Commission's recommendation to include its findings and conclusions shall be forwarded to the Board of Commissioners at a regular scheduled business meeting thereof. And the 5 elements that we're doing for findings and criteria is the proposal in accordance with the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan. Will the effect of the proposal in the immediate vicinity be material detrimental? Is there merit and value in the proposal for the community as a whole? Conditions should be, whether or not conditions should be imposed in order to mitigate any significant adverse impacts from the proposal, and whether a concomitant agreement should be entered into between the county and the petitioner, and if so, the terms and conditions of such an agreement. So, if the Planning Commission wishes to forward a positive recommendation, the following suggested conditions of approval may be applicable for the case file. And the application to rezone approximately 33.92 acres of land to RC1 Rural Community is in accordance with the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan. As I read earlier, the intent of the RC1 Rural Community Zoning District is to provide a rural residential environment permitting 1 dwelling unit per acre. Rezoning the property RC1 is supported by the comprehensive plan. It would be considered a proper implementation of the plan. As earlier stated, that this area was intended and is still intended to be developed as these large lot residential, whereas currently with an AP20 designation, it can't be. Well, I guess one really big lot, but that's not really the intent of the comp plan. The effect of the proposal in the immediate vicinity will not be materially detrimental. Other than the 2/3 of the north boundary, the property is completely surrounded by RC1 already. So I don't see how it would be a conflict with the surrounding uses. Plus, this is a right to farm county, so any farming activity would be protected as long as they're following proper protocols and best, standard practices for the use of their rezone. Okay, there is merit and value in the proposal with the community as a whole because it implements the comprehensive plan and the comprehensive plan, the adoption of the plan is such that we are, that's how we want it to develop, so it matches up with that. Conditions are required to be imposed in order to mitigate any significant adverse impacts. We don't know what those are, but they will be, if that makes any sense. Because we don't know what the specifics. If they do show up, they will be required to be mitigated. A concomitant agreement between the county and the petitioner is not required for this application. Again, I'm not clear what the rationale or justification would be for concomitant agreement in this area. All the others, in fact, I did get a few calls where people were asking about what was going on. As soon as I found that it was a 1 acre minimum, they were fine with it. So I had 2 calls that way, where they were just asking. So they didn't really provide comment, they just asked a question. So, suggested conditions of approval are that the future development at the site shall comply with county development regulations, including but not limited to Title 16 subdivision, Title 17 zoning, Title 18 environment. Future development at this site shall comply with local, state, and federal agency standards, roads, and access. Again, this goes into future development at the rezone site shall be available for the following. Any new lots that may be created as a result of this proposed zone change will require access to a county road that requires access will be subjected to the county road approach policy. And then any mitigation fees required will be determined upon development of the property and will go towards future road upgrades if development continues to grow. Any questions?
I have a question, Derek.
Yep.
I'm really very curious about that little slivered parcel on that northwest corner of the parcel that is having the zone change. So is it just a standalone parcel that's?
As far as I can tell, it might be a right of way. A lot of times the right of ways don't come up if you click on them. Meaning they don't have a listed owner. But this one, I seem to recall this being the same thing. See, it doesn't show up on my parcel map. So I'll show you what I'm talking about there. So when you look at the vicinity map, it actually shows the parcel. It doesn't have that line there. But that has to do with the way that our GIS people drew that out. The applicant is here. He may be able to speak. He may have a better history with that, and be able to speak. But yeah, I honestly don't know. I haven't seen that before. But I see things like that in the county periodically. It's just the width of it looks like it might be a right of way, but I don't know what it is.
Okay. Maybe we'll say that for the applicant can perhaps clear that up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I have a question. Derek, you mentioned that it was this parcel was incorporated into the City of Pasco UGA in 1995, yet excluded in 2008. Can you tell me, is this parcel included in the application, the UGA application before us now?
Not at this time.
So it is not proposed to be included in the UGA then?
Not based on the City of Pasco's application, no.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I saw on one map, and I'm not sure it's one that was provided to us, but I thought that northwest corner was an irrigation ditch that led alongside the northwest side of the property down to an irrigation pond. not sure because I didn't have boundary lines to go by looking on a Google Earth type map if I was in the right area or not, but I thought that's what was taking place. Maybe I'm incorrect on that, but I wondered if that wasn't being excluded because it was an irrigation conveyance area.
You're talking about that sliver along the edge?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, you got a retention pond, what looks like a retention pond of some sort here, and that might be, we've got something directly into the river like that. I'm not sure, again, what that is either. But that could be a drainage. Caleb, are you able to respond to that question?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
So, on the northern boundary there, the northeast corner, that's an irrigation pond, and that's already zoned RC1. There's a little sliver of right-of-way that was dedicated that's just north of the property that we're rezoning. It has nothing to do with any sort of drainage.
It's road right-of-way? What about that the sliver of the farm unit?
Can you put your cursor on your mouse to what you're talking about? There you go.
Yeah, let's show you here. This thing. It's part of the farm unit, but not part of the parcel to be rezoned.
So, right. So we spoke about that because the way the zoning boundaries were done, they were done for farm unit, not for parcel. And so when these parcel boundaries changed, the underlying zoning should have changed with it. And I was actually under the impression, Derek, that you were going to reach out to the two property owners there to get them included, so there wouldn't be any leftover AP20 there.
I can do that, or we can look at. Yeah, we can look at doing that.
Because that doesn't make any sense to leave it.
No, I agree. Like I said, I thought that was some sort of right of way or something. I apologize. Yeah, I can talk with Mr. Eckmeyer, and but it looks like the Kohlers own that property.
No, if you zoomed in, I guess you're on a PDF. That was.
Because it's still listed as being owned by David and Deborah Jane Kohler.
No, so Dave Kohler owned that, and that's his sister's property. And Mary's your, yeah.
Okay. All right. I will contact those individuals and see what we can do with that.
Say, Caleb, on as far as the project go, or does the commissioners have any more questions for you?
Claude, you're gonna have to start from the beginning on that, because I had to go in and unmute you in the middle of that because you were under mute. So just I would start from the top again.
Okay, I would ask Caleb if do you have any more to report on the project, Caleb?
The only thing on the rezone, Commissioner Link asked if this was included in the city's proposed UGA. It's not, but we'll be speaking to this later because we are lobbying to get this portion included in the UGA, but it's presently earmarked out of the UGA. But other than that, I don't have any other comments. We agree with the staff's recommendation for approval, and we'll be standing by if there's any other questions come up.
Okay, is there any more questions that the commissioners have for Caleb? Okay, then all these comments that we heard were in favor. Are there any comments that's neutral or against project?
Yeah, there's nobody that's called in so far, at least that I've seen. So.
Okay. Then is there, does the staff have any final comments?
As Commissioner McMullen would, addition of that, if that little jog in the northwest side of the property added at a later time require a new CUP to add it, or is that a boundary adjustment? How is that dealt with?
There's a few different approaches. Basically what'll happen is I will reach out to Mr. Eichmeyer and Ms. Kohler's sister and talk to them about whether or not they want to be part of this. And basically, if they provide me something in writing that basically says, hey, yeah, we're cool with it, we can incorporate that area, or through a boundary line adjustment, adjust that line to the east. There's various methods that can do that. Yeah, I'm gonna have to talk to them because we can't just leave a sliver like that. Like I said, I thought that was a right of way for an access, and that's why it was set out. I'd forgotten that these were originally done through farm units as opposed to parcels. So because of that, we could potentially do it through a boundary line adjustment, but that would require the two landowners agreeing to expand the property. Or I can reach out to them and say, hey, you've got a portion of AP20 property on your land. We're looking to do a rezone. Are you on board with that? We basically, be a little more formal than that, but along those lines.
Thank you.
Okay, is there any clarification, a public statement? Then I will close this portion of the public hearing for ZC 2020-02. Is there any discussion amongst the planning commission prior to entering a motion?
I just will have one comment. It's just, I've made it before on these types of situations. It's very difficult to say that we can approve all the findings of fact, given the limited information. We know that it's going to be developed, but I find it hard to say that it's not going to have an impact upon the community as a whole without seeing that. Getting a rough idea of what that development is going to look like. So that would be my only comment.
When you're looking at these types of scenarios, you should envision that that property is 33.92 acres. Using the rule of thumb of 20% of the acreage is lost through infrastructure, blah, 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 blah. 25 units can be built there. That's how you look at it. And if you're okay with 25 units, okay. If you're not, then that's where the concomitant agreements come in, to where you start to say, I know the property under RC1 would accommodate up to 25, 30 units, concomitant, but we have concerns regarding X, Y, and Z. So we'd like that number reduced to whatever, to where you're not. But the other aspect, the other part is this is a first step of a two-start process. To change the zoning, that allows for the potentiality of development. That development occurs during the process of that development application, the subdivision application, actually, not the development. That's when you would know, okay, we are literally building 27 houses with 3 roads, X number of this, that, these, those, until the subdivision is actually done. And in Washington State, you're not allowed to do what they call conditional rezones. In other words, the applicant comes in and goes, hey, I want to build a 20-unit subdivision. The potentiality of the property is up to 33. And then we make our basis of approval on that proposal. He gets the RC1 designation. Based on that, then this guy walks up to him and goes, hey man, I'll give you $90 million for that property. He sells it to that individual. The concomitant agreements would bind him. Otherwise, that new individual has every right associated with RC1 to develop to 33. But remember, so in Washington State, you don't even do that. You can do developer agreements or what we call concomitant agreements down here. But that's just the nature of a rezone. You don't have the specific application. You have different parties that are doing this. For example, you may have one guy, not all he does is development. So he just runs around and buys land, subdivides it. Then he sells it off to where he gets the land rezone, sells it to somebody else who does the subdivision. The subdivision party then sells individual lots or maybe the whole subdivision to a third party who's a builder. Because of those dynamics, at a rezone, it's kind of one of those, are you willing to accept the potentiality of a full residential build out on that property? That's how you should make your assessment. And then the specific mitigation requirements and things like that cannot be determined until such time as a specific plan has been developed. And that's not where we're at yet. So when the specific plan comes developed, the intent of the comp plan is that this area become residential, shoreline residential. That's what the comp plan calls out. So that's what we base our analysis on. That's what the thing calls out. This brings the property more into compliance with the comp plan than its current AP 20. That's another part of our analysis that we use.
Derek, I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. But do the abutting properties that are zoned the same, that they're asking for this to be zoned as the RC1, do they have developer agreements on them?
No, not until you get south. It looks like there's some concomitant agreement down in the RS40 area. And then, then there's some way up north by Pomona. There's a concomitant agreement up there, if I recall correctly, of 2 acre homes.
And do those agreements mostly trend towards bigger parcels, like 2 acre parcels or bigger?
Well, it depends on the one. Up there it does. Down in the RS40, I'm not sure what. I just see that it's in. That's what this dots me. Is that this area is under a concomitant agreement? I'd have to look up what that one was.
Okay, I'm just curious.
Somewhere around an acre or something. I'm not sure.
But basically, we're not looking at a project at this point. We're just looking at a zone change and keeping in mind that it would be able to be developed at the highest use allowed by the zone change, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Thank you.
Claude, you gotta start again. I gotta.
Gotta unmute myself.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other comments before we entertain a motion? Okay, I would entertain a motion. I believe there's 5 finding of facts and 3 conditions, conditional use permit, conditional use conditions.
Yes,
Yes.
there's 5 recommended findings of fact, suggested findings of fact, and 3 suggested conditions of approval.
Right, okay.
Mr. Chairman, this is Melinda. I move to forward a public recommendation with 5 findings of fact and 3 conditions of approval for for this zone change number 2020-02.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, that was a second. From Commissioner Corrales.
Thank you.
And, so we have a Commissioner Didier moved, and it was seconded by Commissioner Corrales, that we forward to the board commissioners a recommendation of approval for, 5 finding of facts and 3 conditions on ZC 2020-02 with the adopted finding of facts and the conditions of approval, which I mentioned. Is there any other discussion? Then may we have a roll call?
Melinda Didier,
Yes.
Claude Parrott,
Yes.
Mike Vincent,
Yes.
Mike Corrales,
Yes.
Roger Link,
Yes.
Kent McMullen.
Yes.
The motion is approved.
Okay. Thank you, Rebecca. The motion has been approved.
Thank
So,
you.
so we'll move into the City of Pasco Urban Growth Area expansion request. Are there any parties that you need to get a hold of, Derek, as far as speaking on this? I see Jacob on the line.
Yeah, we don't have any call-ins. At least that I see. On
Yeah.
Here.
Now Caleb's gonna put on a different hangout. Cause he's got, I believe, some folks with him that are in front of the comment, but we'll get to that in a minute. So what I'm hearing is we do not need to take the 5-minute break, correct, Darren?
Yeah,
Okay.
from what I'm saying.
Okay. Well, then let's call the meeting a little after 8 o'clock. It's, I got 7:57, so we call 8:05.
What?
We call the meeting.
What?
No, we
No,
do
no,
not
we
need-
got the.
Oh, we do not.
need.
Oh,
Sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry, we do not need, that is only in case Aaron has received phone calls
Oh, I see.
and
Okay.
then he has to take some time to get them situated so we can start and allow them to comment. But the only party that we're aware of right now that has potential comment is Mr. Stromstad. So if it's okay with you, Chair, I'll go ahead and read this,
Go ahead.
rules. Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you all for participating in tonight's workshop. Process for the workshop is as follows. UGA expansion request presentation by the City of Pasco. Following the presentation, Planning Commission and staff members may ask questions of the city. Then each caller or people that are seeking to comment will be assigned a number based on a placement in the queue. This was assuming that folks had called in. Callers will then each be asked to make their statements regarding the proposal and or ask questions about the proposal. Each caller will have up to 5 minutes to make their statements, ask questions. All callers still on the line will be provided an opportunity to speak or ask questions. The city and or staff as applicable will respond to those. After all callers have been provided an opportunity to make a statement, ask questions, staff will ask if there are any other comments. And we'll basically repeat this cycle until either there are no further requests from the callers and or the Planning Commission has determined it has received enough information for it to be satisfied with the workshop. And then the Planning Commission chair will close the workshop. So that's kind of how we're going to work this. This might work a little different next time. If it does, we'll provide those directions then. So, if it's okay with everyone,
Mr. Drayton, may I ask a point of order question, please? This is Rick White, City of Pasco.
Sure.
It's my understanding that this is a workshop and was not advertised as a public hearing.
Correct.
I'm puzzled about the opportunity for public comment at this point.
Well, that's what a public workshop is where the public and the staff or the body discusses a proposal.
Was it advertised as a public hearing?
It's not a public hearing. We'll be holding a public hearing on January 5th. This is a public workshop where the public was invited to workshop a concept or legislative action before the board.
So it was not advertised as a public hearing,
It was advertised as a public workshop.
but not a hearing.
Correct.
Thank you.
We are looking to hold the hearing on January 5th.
Mr. Chair, in reviewing our bylaws, it indicates that for workshops, no formal action can be taken, obviously. It shall be open to the public, obviously. However, no testimony will be taken.
Correct.
Yeah, that's outside. That's generally how workshops are conducted. Both you, Commissioner Link, and Mr. White are correct in that in a workshop, generally there is no public comment period. They're there to observe.
But they can listen in, right?
Yes.
Okay. So how do we want to go forward on this?
Well, I'm not in any interest in violating any potential issues there. Where I came from, we would commonly have public workshops with the public actively involved in the process, as this is a community-wide process. I would agree with the fact that I'm hearing that there are some potential concerns with that. And I apologize to any parties that are seeking to comment on this evening's workshop. We will have to look into that and postpone that version of a public workshop that I just described. I may have used the wrong terminology, so I will have to retract that. And I apologize to any parties that are seeking to speak to this matter and have a discussion on this. We will, bylaws say that, and that's it. I guess we won't be able to allow for public comment at this time unless I find something otherwise. Unfortunately, my legal is not able to attend this evening to make a determination regarding that. So, in the interest of ensuring that we don't have violations of process during this meeting, I'm going to have to, I guess we'll just do the presentation, and it'll just be staff, and I've not heard that, and in the jurisdictions where I worked formerly, it was really quite common to have public workshops where the public actually got to say something. So, otherwise, it's just a workshop with staff informing. So I guess we'll just move forward with the presentation. And I will look into how I can get a different setup going for what I was hoping to achieve this evening.
Mr. Chair, it does also provide that commission members may choose to ask questions or answer questions in the audience.
And in addition, Derek, I'm going to add to that at one point, I don't know if that's still something that you could do with this process. I'm sure the city of Pasco has probably already held structured, unstructured open house where the public can come and they're able to talk to not only city staff, but county staff.
I apparently used the wrong wording down here. It's an open house scenario or something like that. We just call them public workshops. There was either a workshop or a public workshop. Public workshops where the public was invited to participate in the conversation. Workshops were just where they got to listen. So, like I said, we'll have to do something. I'll get this figured out, and I'll be looking at probably December 15th to hold another meeting of some sort. Maybe it's an open house. I don't know. I just don't know off the top of my head. Like I said, the terminology was relatively common. So I apparently used the wrong terminology. Therefore, I'm not going to sit here and
Do what, table this then until the 15th?
Well, that's up to the city as to whether or not they want to do their presentation now.
Hi, Derek. I don't mean to interrupt, but on behalf of the city, this is Jacob Gonzalez in the planning department at the city of Pasco. We can certainly proceed forward with a presentation as we prepare tonight for a workshop. And then if appropriate and if necessary, we can certainly come back on December 15th, prepared for a public hearing. And also we can address any questions that may come up during tonight's workshop presentation.
Okay. That works for me. It's really up to the commission.
Any questions or anything from the commission? Otherwise, we'll turn it over to the city. Let them give their presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Planning Director Braden. I certainly don't want to get on the wrong side of the commission. I was just confused about whether this was a public hearing or not. We were not prepared for a public hearing, and I just want to make note that the city has engaged in an extensive public comment process with our environmental impact statement and an application to the county for the urban growth area expansion. And that public comment process lasted, and I might be off a few days or weeks, but approximately 90 days or so. But I did want to, as Jacob mentioned, he's been the driving force behind this urban growth area expansion and environmental impact statement. It's been a very long process. The commission first heard this presentation in 2018. It's been significantly revised since then, actually based on a lot of comments by the Franklin County Planning Commission. And I look forward to Jacob's presentation, which we have given to our own Planning Commission and City Council several times now. Thank you.
And you all should have received a copy of that. It should have been in the back of the packet. So I just wanted to make, Jacob, everybody should have. Did you send that out?
We did.
So you did get
We have there's pictures, and there are some statements of the urban growth areas.
Okay. There it is.
We have about a 15-page, well, actually 12-page, looks like presentation from the city of Pasco.
Correct.
It's at the end of our agenda package.
Correct.
So we'll let Pasco go ahead and give their presentation.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Whether it be Mr. White or Jacob, you're on.
Is everybody seeing the,
I am.
Yes.
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 So are we going to
Mr. Gonzalez, go ahead, please.
you gotta unmute yourself, Jacob.
Here,
Jacob, you are muted.
There you
yeah,
go.
I am muted.
All right, can you all hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I apologize for that. I was something came up here. So you can all see the screen, I assume, the intro page.
Yes.
Okay, thank you again. I apologize for that. Again, on behalf of the Department of Community and Economic Development here at the City of Pasco, I want to provide a pretty extensive update to Pasco's urban growth area expansion request. As Director Whitehead mentioned, this effort contains almost 3 years of work, numerous public hearings, public workshops, in open houses that began in early 2018 and is aimed at creating a significant and accountable approach to planning and growth in the city of Pasco. So just some background information on the urban growth area. Obviously, one of the most critical components of managing growth is the appropriate establishment of the UGA. During discussions to the Pasco Planning Commission and to the Pasco City Council, staff made a concerted effort to consistently raise awareness to the responsibilities of the UGA, specifically that they must be reserved for urban levels of density and development, and there shall be careful consideration of the financial costs for municipal utility services. And also point out that the development of the urban growth area played a critical role for the development of the 2018-2038 Pasco Comprehensive Plan update. And the screen here before you shows the basic RCW references to the Washington State Growth Management Act and the urban growth area. We all know that Pasco's and Franklin County and frankly this region have grown rapidly. That growth is expected to continue well on into the future. Our UGA area will need to accommodate at least 40,000 residents by the year 2038, and the growth doesn't stop there. We need to be aware of the fact that by the year 2050, Pasco will likely be home to 150,000 people, and that our region, the Tri-Cities, will be home to approximately 450,000 people. So while obviously this is strictly aimed at Pasco and Franklin County, we do want to make sure that we're operating within the general Tri-Cities planning horizon and trends. With that, this urban growth area expects to accommodate an additional 15,000 housing units at various market levels to accommodate the growth and the community members that will call Pasco home in the future. A brief timeline of where we've been. You may remember that in the summer of 2018, the Pasco City Council adopted or approved Resolution 3845, which at the time was for the expansion of approximately 4,800 acres. Since then, there's been numerous tasks and analysis that have been developed, specifically a scoped environmental impact statement or a non-project EIS that identified 3 UGA alternatives: a no action, a traditional growth target, which represented the 4,800 acre expansion, and also an alternative number 3, which would be a new UGA that was for a more compact growth target. We also conducted a land capacity analysis, a completed non-project environmental and impact statement, along with the urban growth area, a capital facilities plan and expanded infrastructure evaluation were conducted. And just a little over a month ago, actually in early October, on October 5th, the Pasco City Council adopted resolutions number 3997 and 3998 to recommend to Franklin County the approval and certification of our urban growth area request and the comprehensive plan. So one of the more in-depth tests that we took part in was the development of a land capacity analysis. And what this does is it allows the city to determine how much of our expected growth could be accommodated within the existing city limits and the UGA. This analysis was consistent with guidance provided by the Washington State Department of Commerce. The results of the land capacity analysis indicated that Pasco will need approximately 3,500 acres to accommodate our population forecast. We anticipate that the expansion of the urban growth area will accommodate roughly 63% of that future growth within the existing urban growth area, and the remaining will need to be within the expanded urban growth area. I also want to mention that the analysis we conducted for this task actually began after Franklin County staff conducted a similar but smaller effort at identifying vacant lands within the city of Pasco to help accommodate a revised UGA. So in addition to the guidance from the Department of Commerce, we also took into account what Franklin County staff had provided the city of Pasco back in the summer and early fall of 2018. So alternative number 3, which is the adopted UGA by the City Council, is the compact growth target. It's just under 3,500 acres, roughly 3,448. It's a 29% decrease from the alternative number 2 request. It was able to do that by including a variety of residential densities, also accommodating increased commercial and industrial capacity, which helps Pasco rebalance the job and household ratio, as right now, and obviously with the employment center of North Richland and Benton County, the amount of trips that leave Pasco and Franklin County is higher than where they should be. So this UGA and also the development of the comprehensive plan is an effort to help rebalance that so there are more employment opportunities for residents here locally. This is the future land use map that was adopted by the City Council on October 5th. It's obviously hard to discern with the variety of colors and the scale here, but I want to point out to the 3 areas highlighted within the blue circles. All of the residential growth would be captured in this northern area of the existing city limits and UGA. There's accommodations for the Port of Pasco's Ryman Center, which is a partner effort with the Port of Pasco, Franklin PUD, Franklin County, for manufacturing growth up here, and also additional UGA to utilize the City of Pasco's existing utilities along Capitol Avenue, which runs east of 395. And of this future land use, 51% is allocated for low density. Medium and high density is approximately 14%. Commercial is 10%, and industrial is 22%. There's obviously going to be considerations for public spaces, public amenities, parks, schools, public buildings, etc. A very important piece, one that the Department of Commerce has explicitly told us to pay key attention to, was the development of capital facility costs and understanding the high costs of what it takes to expand an urban growth area and provide municipal services. The Growth Management Act requires that we identify funding to meet the level of service standards for a 6-year period, which for us runs through about 2025. This cost is roughly $114 million to provide utilities to the expanded urban growth area. However, keep in mind that these costs are shared by existing revenue and potential revenue sources, taxes, fees, and developer contributions. This is a table that shows the number of meetings that have been held before the Pasco City Council and Planning Commission. The first one with February 15, 2018. Over 25 meetings, 10 or more of them have been public hearings. This also includes all the public comment periods for the urban growth area and the non-project environmental impact statement. So a lot of meetings over the past two or so years. We've only had to cancel one due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So we kept moving forward with this effort despite the challenges of public meetings during this time. I want to point out a few of the themes that were reoccurring throughout this whole process, specifically on the environmental impact statement and the comprehensive plan. These included comments on the how Pasco intends or how we intend to mitigate transportation and specifically congestion, along with multimodal planning, affordable housing, the conversion of agricultural and rural and natural areas to low-density development, modifying city standards and regulations to align with comprehensive plan and city council goals and policies, the funding of capital facilities and infrastructure, protection of public facilities, specifically the Pasco and Tri-Cities Airport, and outreach to the community, including developers, stakeholders, members of the public. And on that note, I also want to point out what Director White had mentioned, that after we received comment from the public, we actually extended the comment period on the draft environmental impact statement much further than what the RCWs and WACs require. I think it was closer to about 70 or so days, but we did extend that public comment period. We received about 245 comments on the EIS. And in your document, probably the last 30 or so pages of the EIS, the non-project EIS, are dedicated for the questions and comments we received and the responses from the city. I want to conclude the presentation by referring back to the Growth Management Act and our efforts to submit a request of Franklin County that meets the Growth Management Act's intent, our own comprehensive plan policies, and the adopted Franklin County countywide planning policies that were adopted back in the fall of 2019. Lastly, managing urban growth area will require the city of Pasco to coordinate with Franklin County and Franklin County planning staff to ensure both of our growth plans remain consistent and aligned with each other. This will require continued dialogue that is necessary as our region continues to adapt to the rapid growth and the added challenges and opportunities that growth brings. This also includes early and often collaboration with the Department of Transportation, the Department of Historic Preservation, Natural Resources, the Port of Pasco, Ben Franklin Transit, the Denton Franklin Council of Governments, tribal agencies such as the Confederated Tribes of the Cobo Reservation, and of course, in all of this, the addition is making sure our plans are transparent and accessible to and responsive to all of the concerns from the residents and businesses here in the city of Pasco that call Pasco home today or in the future. So with that, I'll wrap up this presentation. We are here obviously to answer any questions, comments from the county commissioners. It's quite an extensive document, so if there's anything that certainly want to answer anything that we can tonight, but can certainly come back to the Planning Commission if appropriate with responses to technical information that we can address today. Thank you.
You can remove the paper from the screen, so that we see each other. Are there any questions that the commissioners have for Pasco?
I have a couple questions. I noticed the one sheet was it's an urban growth area. It didn't say outreach to residents. It does say outreach to private developers and land stakeholders. It's a statement more than anything else. I do wish to figure out what identifying environmental justice and equity impacts of future growth. Can you explain what that means, Mr. Gonzalez?
Certainly, you're referring to the theme of identifying environmental justice, right, and the equity concerns. So as the city continues to grow, one of the actually numerous comments we've received on the EIS were ensuring that existing residents in the city of Pasco would not be paying for the additional growth of an expanded urban growth area, which is pretty consistent with what we received even back to 2018. Also, we want to make sure that the additional growth doesn't necessarily, with public funding specifically on the transportation side, there's the Title VI and Environmental Justice Act that we want to make sure that we're not in violation of, and we don't believe we are. We believe we sufficiently address any concerns on those two fronts. So any disproportionate impacts to any members of the community.
And where you've indicated land capacity analysis results, says UGA only 94 acres underutilized. I know I've seen maps from the city of Pasco in the past that would include all of the area of the Riverview area as underutilized. Can you maybe explain what your definition of underutilized is?
Yes, definitely. And so obviously there's the vacant, there's no dwellings on a parcel, and an underutilized parcel would be, for example, if you have a 3-acre lot and there's only 1 unit on there, using the city of Pasco zoning standards, you could subdivide further. Doesn't mean you will, but you could. And so we had to, we were fairly conservative in the area that, especially those that have been recently annexed, that we didn't want to be too aggressive with any population forecast there because there's some utility constraints, specifically with transportation and sewer provisions. So we had to be really careful. And in fact, the Riverview area, which is the least dense in the urban growth area, is part of the reason why we have to expand so much in the first place. And so we want to be careful with that. But in terms of a definition for underutilized, it just means that under these city zoning standards, you can further subdivide and still be compliant.
Okay.
So, Jacob, with that include, I know this is a sensitive subject, but, and I asked that question, we have shop about the urban growth area, and, you know, that you were going to be bringing us in. And it had to do with those, and it might be the area that Roger was referring to, those really large county islands that, you know, are in the, looks like they're kind of almost in the center of this, what is the city of Pasco right now. Is there, you know, they've got to be in your urban growth area now. So are there, you know, any plans for maybe mitigating some of that urban sprawl by bringing those interior islands into the city?
Yes, in terms of them being annexed, certainly. In fact, one of the ways we were able to reduce the alternative number 2 request by almost 30% was by taking the guidance by Commerce and Franklin County staff, which indicated that Pasco should take a different, basically evaluate infill opportunities more thoroughly. And that's how it's part of the reason why we're able to decrease the UGA request. Also keep in mind that the Port of Pasco just had a rezone request approved by the City of Pasco Planning Commission a few months ago that would add residential developments on near Osprey Point. We have ongoing multifamily and dense developments along 20th Avenue and A Street. Downtown Pasco does allow housing, and we're seeing more and more infill occurring. And so it really is a tug of war of sorts, where if we are successful at infill development, even light infill in Riverview, that obviously decreases what we need to accommodate our growth. So if we can accommodate 100 dwelling units in the UGA, well then that means we don't have to expand 100 for 100 dwelling units that we can provide service for in the future. So it really was a delicate balance. But we did try to take into account historic presence in West Pasco, and beyond that, there are significant concerns with utility provisions in that area. So even though there's a lot of underutilized areas and vacant parcels in that part of Pasco in the urban growth area, many of the transportation corridors or lack of would not allow for safe, accessible travel. for residents to call that area, home in the future. So we're also working on quite a few amendments based on recent state legislation, specifically House Bill 1923, that we've seen some modest success with developers coming in and utilize some of these new techniques that allow a little bit more creativity due to the I would say adjacent developments that allow for dwellings to be built safely. But it's kind of nitpicking at the root cause, which is and it gets back to the referring back to the urban growth area definition, right? An urban growth area shall be reserved for urban levels of density and growth. And when I look at the city of Pasco, and Riverview has a dwelling unit, a density of 2 units an acre, that's not urban, whereas Central Pasco is 8 units and north of the interstate is 4 units an acre. You can see the disparity of how dwellings and density is distributed across the city. And so this urban growth area request takes into account much of the historic decisions that have been made over decades, and also trying to ensure that we really aren't making the same mistakes and learning from what's going on today, because we are continuing to grow, and we want to make sure that we're doing so, obviously meeting the Growth Management Act, but probably more importantly, making sure that the City Council's goals and policies based on the residents' responses are being addressed.
Thank you.
Any other questions anybody has for Mr. Gonzalez or Mr. White?
I had a question for Derek, if that's all right.
Yep.
That you?
You indicated that, what's his name? Mr. Stromstad had an interest in adding the area that we just rezoned into the UGA. I assume that is something that the Franklin County Planning Commission cannot do, that would have to go back to the city of Pasco for amendment of its application and comprehensive plan.
Well, the county would have a right to unilaterally modify the UGA. However, if they do so, they have to show that everything within the UGA needs to be able to be served by urban services within 20 years. I mean, that's a rough analysis or statement. So for the county to say unilaterally do it, we would have to be able to articulate how all the urban services are being provided. We would have to go back and do effectively, at a minimum, some sort of environmental impact analysis. I don't know exactly what the level or degree it would be. And those types of elements. So it has to be remembered the county does not have water or sewer facilities. We have transportation. So yes, generally speaking, it depends on the idea, but if the idea was that the city of Pasco was going to be providing water or sewer services to that area or other urban services, the county cannot unilaterally burden the city unless the city is doing something that is found to be just not right, I guess. I'm sorry, it's not the best articulation of it. But, our view of the UGA is to determine whether or not it meets with or conflicts with the countywide planning policies, meets with or conflicts with elements of our comp plan, like our transportation elements and things like that. If that were to occur, then we would have to enter into a discussion with the city such that trying to figure out how to work those conflicts out. At this point in time, we're not aware of any glaring conflicts. But as mentioned, it's a pretty substantial document, so we're still going through it. The ones that we found initially have already been communicated to the city. But so it's kind of one of those, it depends. But in that specific case, say for a residential development that was requiring services from the city or something like that, that would they have to be able to provide services. If we can't, the county decides to add an area, then it's the county's obligation and responsibility to ensure that the services are provided. Those things that are in the UGA and those landowners in the UGA have an expectation of service provision within a certain time period. In an optimal world, without leapfrog development or anything like that, what would happen is every 6 years, the plan, Jacob mentioned the 6-year plan. We got that for water, you got that for sewer, and you got that for transportation. Optimally, what would happen is as your development's occurring over the course of that 6 years, you're building up, and then your next 6-year plan, which is actually updated every 1 to 2 years, is checked to just make sure of consistency. So in the 20-year horizon, you're going to have up to 3 full cycles of 6-year plans. All of that needs to be shown to be able to provide and it helps establish your timeline for development and service provision as the UGA develops out. So those plans, that's the 6-year plan is a reflection of the comprehensive goals, plans and goals and things that are established through this 20-year plan. All of this is very general. There's much more specifics and there's much more detail to it, but so that's kind of where it is regarding the inclusion of that property. Should the city decide to include it, then they would submit a request to amend the UGA boundaries and provide the justifications for how they're going to serve the area. And that would be the case for the county as well. If we decided to amend the UGA, then we would be the party that needs to show how that's all going to work. Anything in a zoning designation, our rural designations, there's no need for any of our rural properties, 1 acre or more, to be included in the UGA. It just doesn't serve a purpose. The UGA is to be, as Mr. Gonzalez stated, really built to an urban standard. And that generally is considered 4 units to an acre or higher densities. Technically, according to the Growth Management Hearings Board, or maybe it was the court, sometimes up to 1 acre, even 5 acre lots can be considered urban. I don't really ascribe to that definition because it seems to fly in the flat face of pretty much everything that's taught in planning. That urban is one thing. Then you do have this transitory zone called suburban. And that's what I believe is 1 to 5 acre lots could fall under into a suburban category. But right now we don't really have that as a defined thing like we do with urban and rural. I think it should be because the reality is the majority of people live in, not the majority, but lots of people live in this urban-rural interface area that is suburbia. But it's not an area that's well-defined, and there's not a lot of regulations articulating how suburbia should be developed because the definitions have never been established. So we're stuck with urban and rural, and the grand range of what is considered urban and rural is really quite often based on the island you're in and the region that you're in.
Thank you. Mr. Stromstead asked that I ask him the same question. I am not. I will ask him, why are you interested in being in the urban growth area.
So, are you asking Mr. Stromstad that question?
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
So we can hear our interest in, okay, yeah, so our interest is, so I'm representing the landowner, Mrs. Kohler, and the developer who has the land under contract, Big Sky Developers. The reason they want to be inside the UGA is because the owner wants to sell it and the developer wants to develop it and accomplish the goals of developing undeveloped property that the city is trying to do. And if you look at the urban growth map, the property, the Kohler property is actually, it's earmarked out of the urban growth boundary. And that's simply why we want it in the UGA, so we can develop it. And another interesting note is we presented this to the Planning Commission at the city and the city council. We've been engaged throughout the public process. The proposal for this one in particular is to extend city sewer over a mile to service this area and open up hundreds of acres of development. And we can get into this more, Mr. Link and the rest of the commissioners, but the way it happened was Alternative 2 went through the public process, and that included a larger UGA area in this area. The Kohler property was in the UGA. The city submitted that to the county. The county made some very credible comments. The city withdrew their application and went behind closed doors for almost a year, came out with the concept you see here. A lot of work went into this concept, and protecting the integrity of that hard work is where it's been. And so the public process through the city planning commission and city council is there's been no substantial response of why it could not be included in the UGA. And so what Mr. Bratton was speaking to earlier, absolutely the county has every right to ask the city questions. Why wasn't this included? Give me justification for why it's not included. Why can't it, or can it be included? What are the potential impacts? This is your job to do that. And the county has full authority under the GMA to determine the boundary of the UGA, not the city. The county does. And so this is the county planning commission's job to ask these tough questions, to filter all this stuff out, so when it goes to the county commissioners, this is all vetted out. And so, yeah, we would definitely ask the planning commission to ask some really tough questions and specific questions. You get a lot of generic answers, and we think this is a reasonable request. Hope does that answer your question, Mr. Link?
Yeah, well, just so happened that American Boy Scouts, as a part of one of their citizenship and the community merit badges, watched that meeting where the city adopted the comprehensive plan, and I didn't see any requests being made by yourself or any others to add that area to the UGA.
Oh, we had an attorney and myself speak to that, to the city council and the planning commission, just about every time. I mean, we can go back on the video record. We were there at every one.
So at the October 5th meeting, you were there, and you would miss that.
I'd be happy to go back and check, absolutely. I don't remember the dates off the top of my head, but we spoke directly to city council.
Okay.
Commissioner Link, this is Jacob Gonzalez, the city of Pasco, and I can confirm Mr. Stromstad's comments. Mr. Stromstad did provide public comment before the Pasco City Council.
Okay. Thank you.
Is there any other questions for Mr. Gonzalez or even Mr. White on the commissions?
Mr. White, I don't know, is it appropriate at this level to address these concerns that Mr. Stromstad believes that we need to delve into as far as the Franklin County Planning Commission? I don't know who I asked that question of, actually.
Commissioner, Mr. Chair, may I address the commission?
You got it.
I'll take that as a yes.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, Mr. Stromstad addressed a couple of issues that maybe need a little clarification. First of all, city staff did not go behind closed doors and come up with a proposal. Obviously, this was the topic of an environmental impact statement, and Mr. Stromstad has commented multiple times on either the aspects of the environmental impact statement or the boundaries of the urban growth area. I can't remember offhand how many times, but it's been at least 3 or 4, either to the planning commission and or city council. We heard a discussion recently about the definition of urban density. Mr. Planning Director Brayden indicated that urban density is anywhere from 4, now it's up to 6 units per acre from the Department of Commerce. There was a proposal, and I have this in writing, from the developer that is represented by Mr. Stromstad, that has indicated they want to extend sewer 6,000 feet to develop subdivisions at 2 units per acre, which of course is not urban density, nor would it pencil out for the city of Pasco to include it. Our comprehensive sewer plan also does not include this property as being a sewer property. So we have a couple of conflicts with long-range, very expensive community planning processes that indicate we should not be addressing urban density in this particular location. So, Commissioner Dean, I don't know if that answers your question. I hope it does. But those were some of my notes that I made just as of a few minutes ago.
Yes, thank you, Mr. White. Actually, that does answer it, because that was something that I was thinking of as I was listening to Mr. Stromstad was, so who's going to pay for this? Basically, because I know from experience how expensive and it's to run this type of infrastructure to something that, as you said, does not meet the definition of an urban density.
And that actually kind of highlights where we've been missing it with the city. It does not make any sense to extend sewer over a mile to serve a half-acre development. When you develop a piece of property, we look at it, we look at multiple ways to develop. We can develop with 1 acre on well and septic. We can extend city water and do city water and septic. We can do half-acre lots. Or we can extend city sewer and water and get a higher density if we get the appropriate zoning from the county. It's a tiered process. The first step is doing an urban growth boundary inclusion. And so this is the second time Mr. White has said this in a public forum, that the email he has from the developer was the plan to do half-acre or 2 units per acre development. That's correct. That is one of the options, because we have multiple options, but we would not extend sewer over a mile to serve a half-acre development, because that doesn't pencil out. So you can see where the lack of understanding or willingness to even understand what we're trying to do comes up, and that's where we're asking the Planning Commission to be an advocate, to ask these questions so we can actually be heard, because protecting the integrity of this document is what we've been up against. The city spent a lot of time. We're not against expanding the urban growth boundaries. We have another option to talk about a land use designation in the county, that a commercial designation that doesn't make any logical sense. But again, the county planning commission has the absolute authority to these weren't included. And we'd be happy to fact check it because we work with the city and we would agree with them on a lot of things. Specifically to these points, we're in disagreement. And the disagreement is mostly a misunderstanding, as Mr. White just alluded to. So we're hoping the county can hear what we're trying to do.
Hi, this is Jacob. May I address the commissioners?
Yeah. You gotta unmute yours.
Yep. Go ahead, Mr. Gonzalez.
Thank you. I just wanted to add that certainly, again, I would ask the members of the Planning Commission to refer to the non-project AIS, specifically the 45 or so pages that address the comments we received from developers, stakeholders, members of the public, and state agencies, including Franklin County and the Department of Commerce. I also want to add that some of the, maybe I should have gone over this a little bit more thoroughly, so it's practice for the next presentation, but there are really significant differences between the proposal in 2018 and the proposal before you tonight and will be before you in the future. And one of them was based on the guidance from the Department of Commerce and Franklin County planning staff, which was the development of a land capacity analysis that included infill development. There's also been numerous developments and efforts that have occurred and began from 2018's effort up until now, including infill, large multifamily infill development in Central Pasco, the Port of Pasco's efforts, additional rezoning requests that have gone above what we anticipated in the land capacity analysis for vacant underutilized development or redevelopment. And so to answer the question of what's necessary in the urban growth area, what we need in an urban growth area should sufficiently accommodate 20 years of growth, or for the city of Pasco through the year 2038. What we've identified through a variety of analysis and ongoing efforts is that what we've included in the urban growth area before today is sufficient to accommodate the 20 years of growth. Otherwise, or another way, we don't necessarily need any more land to accommodate the growth. And if we try to reach out for more growth, that would be a red flag to state agencies as to why we're trying to include land that isn't necessary to accommodate growth. And we have to be prepared to answer that question. City of Pasco doesn't believe we need it.
Any response to that from the commissioners? Or even Mr. Stromstad?
Yeah, I'd be happy to speak to that. There's one of the things you'll hear is the fear of the response to state agencies. The next meeting we can talk about the numbers, but the city went and took alternative 2, reduced it to what you know as alternative 3, and then during the public process there was some land swaps that happened, and ironically enough, there was land taken out that equals the land that we're requesting to be put in. This area was covered in the draft EIS, and so there is no more environmental issues or issues needed to be, or processes needed to be done. This area was included. As far as the sewer comp plan goes, this area was excluded, but ironically what the city's telling you is you can review this, but make sure your comments are limited to what fits in what we want you to do. And that's just simply not true. The sewer comp plan is an overall planning document in the average densities. And there is flexibility to add these 80 to 70 acres that we're trying to get in the urban growth boundary that will fit within the sewer comp plan. And if there needs to be a full-blown analysis for that, that can happen, but I'm telling you it's not necessary, and we can speak technically to that at the next workshop. We'd be happy to. It's a matter of preference. The city's done a lot hard, but they put a lot of time and effort into this. The comprehensive plan is overdue. There's funding in jeopardy. There's a lot of pressure to get this thing through, and so any changes are made to appear that it's going to offset the schedule, and it's simply not going to. These small changes can be made. You have the authority to make it. It's a question and to challenge them. And we just encourage you to do that.
Well, is this something that the city gets together with the county staff and then the results of the meetings is brought before the commission, the planning commission itself? It would seem like it would save us a lot of time sitting here listening to all the different opinions when really the planning staff needs to meet with the city and outline if there's a problem, to address that problem, and then bring it before us, the commissions.
Well, yeah. Ms. Mayor, first of all, we have a December 9th meeting with DOT Aviation consultation meeting. Now, the city's already done that once, if I recall correctly. We may have even done it once. But it's been so long that we're doing it again. And yeah, that's pretty much what'll happen if staff sees a conflict or an issue. But it also has to be remembered that this is you have two things going here, and you have two jurisdictions. You know, the city has their vision, the county has its. We try not to force each other to do things that neither one wants to do, if that's the case. So yeah, we will be meeting, and we will have discussions, and we do have discussions. Regarding this specific subject, we have not really had much discussion on, because again, generally speaking, we default back to the primary concern is the provision of services. We are not the service provider to that area. The city is, when it comes to water and sewer. I believe what Mr. Stromstad was trying to articulate is that until such time as the property is included in the UGA, any request to zone the property at anything higher density than an RC1 would not be allowed in the county. It would not be allowed in the city unless adequate water and sewer facilities are provided. If you include the property in the UGA, then sewer can be extended out to that. If it's not, then it can't be. There's limited circumstances that it will allow for it, but it's pretty rare. And so because of that, that's kind of where the pinch is. So we have a county resident that desires to be in the UGA, and then we have parties that are desiring that. But at the same time, we have quite, and if it is included in the UGA, then the services provided, then theoretically the developer could go for higher densities, which would create an urban density if it were permitted. There's a lot of ifs in this. So it's all, that's what I think I heard Mr. Stromstad stating was but the first thing that has to happen, it has to be in the UGA. If it's not in the UGA, there is no extension of sewer, and therefore there is no allowance for density of less than a half an acre. That's again a very general statement. There are always potentialities, but the reality is development's a business. If it doesn't pencil out, then the developer is not going to go that way. So. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but with all due respect to all the parties involved, aren't we just here for a workshop to listen to and view what the city's proposal is going to be, and for us to have any questions that we might have of city staff and you, and then when it comes time, the city will present their their proposal and we'll make a decision. Is that, am I reading this wrong or am I out of order here? But
I was asked a question, so I was responding to the question.
yeah, I that's what I'm saying. That was my question. Can we move on?
Remember, guys, I don't run these meetings. That's you guys. You're the planning commission. I take direction and order from you. Not the other way around.
All right, that's fine. How about you?
I agree with Melinda. I think we're getting on a point where we're focusing on a small specific issue that was between Mr. Thomas and the city, when we should be focusing on the larger issue.
Well, I'm gonna, if I could, ask Mr. Gonzalez one question, and if it's out of line, but I would like him to address this issue. I'm not gonna hide anything. I'm a proponent of a huge urban growth boundary. I hate to see it cut back. If we don't need it, Ms. Gonzalez, what do you attribute the shortage in housing to and the high price of entry-level homes? What can we do to alleviate that problem?
Certainly, I don't think, well, I don't want to speak offhand here, and Rick, feel free to back me up if I need it here, but I think in general, low-density development means less housing, right? It's lower density, lower amount of units. Now, I'm not a home builder, so I can't tell you the percentage of a development is attributed to right-of-way or other components of a particular development. But what I can say is that I need to interrupt.
Mr. Gonzalez, I hate to interrupt. I'm not a proponent of low-density housing. I'm just the proponent available. The more houses will be built, and this housing crunch rent might be illegal.
Just I can't get out of the screen. Well, maybe I can jump in, Jacob. I think I understand your question, Commissioner. Frankly, I think it has to do with the provision of utility services. It is extremely expensive, and everybody, including myself, I would love to think that you can just turn the property loose and you can develop it, but it doesn't work that way. Utility provisions and the expense associated with are extremely important. Actually, a previous conversation we had about the difficulty of developing in the Riverview area directly in the middle of the city of Pasco is pertinent to this point, because the past development patterns have made it economically unfeasible to either extend sewer or water service, or even sometimes public roads. We are working in particular with two developers that have corralled 10 or 15 acre parcels in the Riverview area, and you would not believe how complicated it is to partner with them to sewer that area. Because if it's not sewered, it will not provide the density that allows them to pencil out their project. And essentially, it's a dollar and cent thing.
I'm starting to understand that more and more. It just breaks my heart to see this housing market the way it is, and your point. I want to do whatever change that, but I see.
And I hope I'm not interrupting. I think our internet feed's a little poor. Just as an ancillary kind of comment, there are many things that also contribute to housing costs rising that don't have anything to do with regulations. The Washington State Building Code update has been postponed due to the pandemic for about 6 months now. But come the first of the year, that energy code revision is going to add a substantial amount of cost to the price of a home, along with just the market conditions of the increased price of building materials, lumber in particular. We're looking, some of the figures that were provided me by the Tri-City Home Building Association have indicated that it may contribute between $15,000 to $25,000 per home of increased cost, totally outside any regulations that our agencies are dealing with.
Thank you.
And I would add that impact fees and those sorts of things have a driving power on the cost of homes. Of course, I look at it from a standpoint as cyclical. I don't believe this is going to go on forever.
How long have you lived in Tri-Cities?
20 years. I unfortunately was the 1995 bus, and it's been 25 years since we've had a bus here.
Do we have any more comments? Any more questions? Do we want to adjourn this? And, okay.
I do have a question for staff. I think the last time we talked about this, we were going to get a hard copy of what we have from the city of Pasco. I'm really tired of sitting at my computer going through it. I was hoping to be able to sit down in a more comfortable chair.
I sent out an email before Thanksgiving stating that we had made copies for the commissioners for pickup.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It was approximately $15 to $20 each to mail them.
Okay. So I'll come by the office. I'm sorry, I missed that one.
Okay.
Okay, any other comments? Then,
Mr. Commissioner.
Go ahead.
Caleb Stromstead, is it all right if Fred Oberding has a comment?
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Fred. You guys hear me?
Okay. Oh, I don't have to move. Based on the other meetings, my name is Fred Oberding. I'm a farmer in Franklin County. I farm on Clark Road. And I have been through this process since they started option 1 and went to option 2 and down to option 3. But, you know, I've been a resident of Franklin County since I was 6 months old. I came from the state of Idaho. But now I'm a Franklin County resident. And I always have been, and I'm not a Pasco City resident. But I, you know, do recognize the need for growth and opportunity. And over the last year, several years, my brother and I have purchased ground that was close to the city of Pasco, and now is right next to the city of Pasco. And some of my ground is in the urban growth development. And so I started paying attention at some of these public meetings that I've been going to for 3 years or so. And the city came out with this option 1, and they came out with option 2, which in my mind, okay, that's the best option for land I've got. What I would personally, for land I've got, what I want to see in the urban growth and what probably shouldn't be there. I had no problem with that. And when they discussed option 2, the Port Commission didn't want one of my 160-acre quarter circles in that lot because it would interfere with airplane traffic lights. I heard that at the Pasco Planning Commission's meetings. And so I went to the Port Commissioners and I addressed the fact that, well, what do you need so you don't have a problem, or what are you going to have to be happy? He says, well, you know, if we had a excuse me, my cell phone went off. If we had an airway easement across that land, then we would be okay with what you're doing. I says, well, you know, to keep this piece of property in the urban growth management area, I would more than be happy to grant you, at no expense to you, an airline easement. Because I knew we were already bound or restricted by some of the ground for the number of houses we could have in that piece of ground. And so I paid a lot of money to have that done, and both the council or the commission and I reported back to the city that we reached an agreement on that. And, you know, they have no problem with this piece of ground being in there. And so it was put in there, and as far as I knew, for over a year it was in there, and only to find out last fall they pulled it out.
It sounds like, Fred, that this is more of a discussion that we'll need to have when we have a public question and answering on the workshop.
I thought Mr. White wanted this to be questions and answers.
No, this is, I only allowed you to Derek thought that it was, but according to evidently the bylaws, it's supposed to be just a workshop hearing.
Yeah, I didn't advertise it under the proper name. I apologize for that.
So what am I allowed to say then? I'm off the...
Mr. Stromstad was allowed to speak because he was asked a direct question from one of the commissioners. I'm not sure if you were here earlier when we had a discussion regarding this. And that I'm going to have to set up a different format and a different arrangement and advertise it as a different type of meeting in order to have the back and forth conversation that I was hoping for prior to the actual public hearing. Or maybe what we'll just do is advertise it as a public hearing and have more than one public hearing. This is legislative action, therefore we can hold multiple public hearings, as was shown in Mr. Gonzalez's slide. You know, I don't remember how many, but there was like 10 public hearings or something like that.
You're right. There were several.
Yeah. So
one of my problems is 160-acre quarter section that's left out on the south side of Clark Road is. If they leave that out, then I'm subject to going right up against the high school, and there's no law enforcement out there anymore because I deal with people from the city dumping their trash out there, letting their animals loose, all kinds of problems you have when you're a farmer or agriculture oriented that these city people don't understand. They think we want these dogs, cats, and other shit out here. And what we have to do,
we're going to need to cut it off right now, Mr. Oberdeen, and we'll provide you an opportunity to get into this a little bit more at a future meeting. But unfortunately, this one is not the proper format, and I again apologize. The terms of art, where I came from, that was described as a workshop, down here it has a different connotation and meaning. So I apologize for that confusion. But as I indicated earlier, we'll be looking at holding an event on the 15th that will allow for public comment more in line with the area that you're in, and I apologize for that.
I will see you then.
Okay, thank you.
It sounds like, Derek, that, on the 15th, you need just the one meeting.
That's all we're gonna be doing is this. There will be no other subjects. It'll be specifically to this item.
Sounds like
Like I
there's
said, I just have to figure out what my, correct title for the meeting is.
okay.
Figure it out. And if it's not on the 15th, it'll be sooner. We're not going to rush this process. We're going to do what we need to do to make sure that it's right. If we rush it, then we're going to run into problems.
That's right.
So if we need to hold multiple public hearings or meetings to discuss it and get these things out, that said, you know, once we've heard the arguments and once we've seen the data, and once the analysis has been made, you know, we're not going to keep doing this forever. We do have to draw a point in the sand where you know, but you know, but we will provide additional opportunities. This is not going to be the only one. And in fact, our system will be hopefully a little bit better too, as far as that process goes.
Well, there'll be a time limit to speak on, and not repetitive.
Right. Yeah, we'll go, but that we're gonna have to address on the 15th. You know, that's the date I'm saying right now. There will be notice, will be sent. Everybody on the email list will be sent notice of it, just like I did for tonight. Yeah, well, that's really more where we'll be entertaining comments, digging into specific issues. In the interim, we'll be having a meeting on the 9th, so we'll have whatever information comes out of that we'll be presenting on the 15th. So it's kind of where we're at.
Derek, I have just a quick procedural question. Basically, it's just once the city of Pasco presents us with their submittal for public hearing, you know, for us to make a recommendation, then we're just going to be looking at their presentation. I mean, we don't really have the latitude to add or subtract from what they're presenting. Is that right?
What do you mean? I guess I'm not clear. I mean, just as Mr. Stromstead stated, you have the right to ask questions for any information that you need to be satisfied to make your recommendation.
Yeah, that's not what I asked. What I asked was, I know that I have the right that our board to ask questions. My question was, we don't alter their application one way or another. We just make our decision based on what they present. Is that correct?
What do you mean when you say you don't alter their application?
Like I'm asking you, is that something that once they present their application, for example,
you will make a recommendation on this application, just like you would make a recommendation on any. You would have them.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is that's the point I'm trying to make? Is that we don't, you know, when they
not the deciding body.
Excuse me.
You're not the deciding body. You make a recommendation to the board.
That's what I just said. I understand all that, Derek. Never mind.
I'm just trying to ensure I'm answering the question. So
no, you're really not. But that's okay. I'm good with that. We'll go ahead and adjourn.
The question, Derek, was what Commissioner Millennium was saying is that when Pasco presents its case, we make our case based on the information that we hear. And that's what the question she was asking you, if I'm correct. It is.
Yes.
And we have the city of Pasco has submitted its application. It was approved by council on October 5th. And that's what we should have completed reading by the 15th. and correct me if I'm wrong, Derek, we also have another 1,200 pages, that is the entire comprehensive plan for the city of, or for the county of Franklin.
Yeah, what's
So
that?
there's lots of pages to. Right. And I've gotten that from Derek.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Lloyd, I didn't understand what you were asking there. The reality, it's their application, then of course staff will make comments based on what their review of their application is, and we'll make a recommendation. And then the commission will make its recommendation, again, adopting or modifying.
And Mr. Braden, this is Rick White. May I offer a comment just to maybe help clarify?
Go ahead.
Commissioner and Chairman, this is a little different because it involves an environmental impact statement. So through the EIS process, we've analyzed 3 alternatives: the no action, the do nothing, the 4,800 acre expansion, and the roughly 3,600 acre expansion. It's our understanding that the commission and the Board of County Commissioners must take action on one of those 3 alternatives mentioned or described in the environmental impact statement. So, and maybe Commissioner Didier was, I think this is going a long way around to getting to her question, but it's our understanding that of those 3 alternatives, one must be chosen unless an addendum or a supplemental EIS process is accomplished for an alternative suggested either by the commission or by the Board of County Commissioners. Thank you.
I appreciate that clarification. That's correct. So we go through, we do all our thing, the board does whatever the board does. If the board doesn't do one of those 3, then it has to make basically a declaration that it's going to be doing some other stuff to make those changes and bring those recommended dates, or at least doing the studies to determine or things like that. So that's why, I apologize because I didn't want to go and say yes or no because there's a lot of nuance. It wasn't a simple answer, and I had to make sure I understood what you were asking. So I apologize if that sounded like I was, So, but I think Mr. White summed it up very well.
Mr. Chair, may I ask Mr. White a question?
Go ahead.
In the comprehensive plan approved by the city of Pasco, does it include the environmental impact statements?
Yes, in a way. The environmental impact statement did not need approval by City Council, but the recommendations of the environmental impact statement were taken into account and forwarded to Franklin County Planning Commission. So the alternative number 3 for the UGA expansion was included, and the City Council incorporated the EIS into their official record of the comprehensive plan, recognizing, and you're right, I share Mr. Braden's concern. This process is process heavy, seriously process heavy. After the county is done with their recommendations, both at the commission level and the Board of County Commissioner level, it still returns to City Council for official adoption. But in essence, yes, Mr. Link, the City Council decision included the environmental impact statement analysis.
Okay. The reason I ask is that that's the document that has been going through about halfway through. And so the follow-up question would be, is the document that you provided to Derek different than what was in the City Council agenda?
No, it's not. No.
It's not, okay.
Yes.
I'm glad I have not been wasting my reading time.
Yeah, well, 600 pages of that and 1,200 pages of the county plan, you're probably about a third of the way there.
I have 2 pair of glasses just for that purpose.
So do we have any more comments? Then I'll go ahead and adjourn the workshop. And I'll close it. And let staff has a report, and I'll adjourn the meeting.
Just got a couple quick questions, checking in on an update on the PC bylaw review. I haven't heard. Is anybody starting on that yet? We're in a group that has agreed to start working on that. Roger Kent and
Commissioner Link had sent out his version of what should be, what shouldn't be.
Oh, okay.
And
get a copy of that?
So we need
a copy here.
So we need to probably get together, the 3 of us or 4 of us, and go over this. At some point.
All right. I'll have to double check my emails. I must have missed it or I didn't see it. So I'll double check on that. New Year coming, so we'll get out a calendar of meeting dates here for next year. Unless there's a request to do it, otherwise we'll pretty much continue with the pattern that we've been following. And this is primarily for Claude as an FYI. The Eagle Crest Phase 3 subdivision is out for agency finalization review. In other words, they're getting ready to request that we sign it. And for whatever reason, under our code, the chair signs final plats.
Can this be done tonight or?
No. I'll let you know. We just got it out and sent it out. So what we're now doing is waiting for feedback from the agencies to say, yeah, it's ready for signature.
Okay.
They'll collect the signatures. I'll let you know when I've got it in-house, and we'll make arrangements then. I just wanted to give you that heads up that it's probably going to happen within the next couple of weeks.
Okay, very good.
And that's it for me right now.
Anything else from anyone else? Adjourn. Good evening, everyone.
Thank you. Y'all have a good one.
Thank you.
Yeah.